So, Mr. Rahman, what's your perspective on the causes and nature of human rights violations that we witness in South Asia in general?
Human rights issue is a global issue. Now, whole history of Babri Mosque is a case in point how the Indians are taking the religious community which is in minority, and what kind of plans they have for this party.
The extent of opportunities that minorities enjoy in the government services, in the military, in the parliament of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Where do you see minorities get the most opportunity and have risen to the highest ranks? And where do you think the situation is most worrying?
When we come to Pakistan, we find that they can contest on the general seats, and they have then a special quota for them in the parliament. As far as India is concerned, there the representation of minorities is much less than their proportion in the population.
How do you look at the current state of politics in Bangladesh? What is the cause of all this transformation?
This is not sudden. It was a process that was going on since long. What happened as a sudden trigger, Hasina Wajid, the Prime Minister, she came up with a statement that equated the protesters with the Razakars.
When we look at the personality and the history of Mr. Yunus, there are growing concerns expressed by Indians and Indian media that the Hindus are being persecuted and their rights are under threat. What is the reason for this?
India's player in Bangladesh was Hasina Wajid. So it may take some time for Indians to recoup as per their design, or to regain the ground they have lost currently. It may take some time, but they will try to make every effort.
Viewers, very warm welcome to another episode of V News English program Perspectives, in which we bring together from around the world some of the most influential and thoughtful perspectives on the most critical issues facing the world. Today we are joined by another leading authority on South Asian politics and security issues, Mr. Khalid Rahman. Mr. Khalid Rahman is chairman, Institute of Policy Studies, which is a 45-year-old, very respected and credible think tank based in Islamabad. While Mr. Khalid Rahman has been contributing towards various regional and international issues related to faith, society, China, Afghanistan, and other important South Asian issues for over 4 decades. So very warm welcome, Mr. Khalid Rahman, for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting.
So viewers, as you are aware, since the last couple of weeks, the international media is offering a lot of concern regarding the recent developments in Bangladesh, particularly some serious allegations regarding the violation of human rights of the Hindu minorities. So we thought it's a useful opportunity to try to objectively analyze the state of affairs regarding minority rights in South Asia in general, but also what is the reality in Bangladesh. Viewers, I think South Asia is a very diverse and complex region, but most major countries like India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh have a significant minority population. India, according to recent estimates, has more than 14% Muslims, about 1.7% Sikhs, and a sizable figure of Christians and Dalits. whereas Bangladesh has about 7 to 8% Hindus, whereas Pakistan has 96% Muslims and about 2% Hindus and about 1.7% Christians. The international media frequently covers the human rights issues in this region. But is that perspective objective and fact-based? That is something that we'll try to understand with the help of Mr. Khalid Rahman. So, Mr. Rahman, what's your perspective on the causes and nature of human rights violations that we witness in South Asia in general? And which country do you think deserves most international attention and concern regarding the state of human rights in that country?
Thank you very much. Let me first of all recognize that human rights issue is a global issue. And South Asia in that context is not something in isolation. The most recent example is what is happening in Gaza. But since this is not our subject today, I would like to come back to South Asia. Now, South Asia, as you rightly pointed out, has three major countries, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And a lot of discussion is taking place on the human rights issues in these countries. I think before coming to the specifics, let me point out that when we are talking about the minorities in terms of religion, India has called itself from day one as a secular country. Still, it is constitutionally a secular country. And that's why it is even more important for India to come with a record which must be very clean, very justified in terms of providing human rights to all communities. When it is Pakistan, Pakistan calls itself Islamic Republic of Pakistan, but still constitutionally it provides all kinds of rights to the minorities, except for a couple of things, which is quite logical in terms of, I would say, the key positions at the highest level. Now, when it comes to Bangladesh, since 1971, it called itself secular. So also that was the paradigm under which it should have worked like that. But the question is that when India started calling itself secular, it had in the back of it three reasons, I would say. First, it was in the context of the independence movement in which Muslim League was asking for two-nation theory and Congress was asking for a secular country. So it was the need in that context. Secondly, it is a religious society and Hinduism is there, but it has a lot of caste system which divides the whole society. So for them, it was important to address these divisions within, to be called themselves secular. And thirdly, as far as the international environment is concerned, it was more acceptable in the international environment. So it went for these reasons to be called secular state. Now, what happened actually, if we go back to the history of India, we find that Babri Masjid was locked or was closed in 1949. That was a period when Congress was ruling, and we found that this Babri Mosque was closed, and it remained closed for several years until in 1992, again during the period of Congress, it was dismantled and abolished. Then it went on to the time that BJP came into power, and finally we find that with all its influence, it was able to manage a reconstruction of temple over there. Now, this whole history of Babri Mosque is a case in point how the Indians are taking the religious community, which is in minority, and what kind of plans they have for this party. And then Muslims are not alone. We find that Sikhs have been targeted. We find many other communities, all of them against the Hindu majority community are facing these difficulties. Now, a very important development has taken place in 2014. Until that time, the Congress was ruling most of the time and it had a soft face. So at that time, in those days, it was not a declared policy that the majoritarianism will be implemented. But since Modi has come, it has started implementing the agenda, which is quite extremist. And let me share some of the figures that Sachar committee has pointed out. It was the committee was established in early 19, I would say in 1990s, and its report came in 2006. Now it says that in the 14+% population of Muslims, there are only 2 point a few percent in foreign policy, in administrative, in all services, administrative services, railway, police. You will find, as against the population of 14%, they are just around 2 or 3%. When you go to the parliament, as far as the political representation is concerned, we find that this 14% population has never been represented in the parliament according to their population. The population is 14 point some percent, and as far as the representation is concerned, it has remained around 5%. Even in today's parliament, it is around 5%.
Khalid sir, let me ask you a supplementary question on this very important point that you raised. Can you briefly compare, without going into specific numbers, the extent of opportunities that minorities enjoy in the government services, in the military, in the parliament of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh? Where do you see minorities get the most opportunity and have risen to the highest ranks? And where do you think the situation is most worrying?
As I just pointed out, as far as India is concerned, there the representation of minorities is much less than their proportion in the population. When we come to Pakistan, we find that in Pakistan, the minorities, as far as the political representation is concerned, they have two opportunities. One, they can contest on the general seats, and they have then a special quota for them in the parliament, not only in the parliament, but in the provincial assemblies, and also even at the local level. You will find there are seats.
Special seats. You mean the minority special seat?
Yeah, they have special seats. So that means they have double opportunity, that they can test on the general seats, and at the same time they can have their representation through this special quota in all kind of electoral institutions. As far as Bangladesh is concerned, I think I don't have figures, but I can understand with the background that I have, that there is a larger portion of minorities, particularly Hindu minority, in their institutions. In fact, during last 15 years, you find that during Hasina Wajid's period, there was a lot of intervention of Indians in the institutions as well as decision making in Bangladesh. And perhaps that was one of the reasons why there was so much anger against Hasina Wajid, which was associated with her policies and her relationship with India and the intervention of India. So in Bangladesh,
what is the situation in India? How many Muslim member of parliament you think have been given the ticket or seat in the recent elections? Any idea?
I think the current election, in the current election, Muslims got some 24 seats in the parliament, which means it is less than or just around 5%, because the total number of the Lok Sabha members is 540 plus. So with that,
but if I recall correctly, I think BJP did not, and no Muslim candidate contesting on BJP's ticket won a seat in the Lok Sabha.
In this 2024 elections. In the earlier elections, BJP and other parties also, they were putting candidates from the Muslim community also. But in this recent election, BJP did not give a ticket to Muslim candidates. And but overall in the parliament, there are 24 members of the Muslim community. So this is quite, yeah.
Yeah, let me briefly request your comments on the extent of religious freedom in these three countries. You mentioned Babri Mosque being converted into Hindu temple. Also, the holiest shrine of Sikhs, Golden Temple, was invaded by the Indian military forces and desecrated. Do you see such parallels in Pakistan and Bangladesh as well?
You see, you can always find a couple of examples at every place in this charged environment, which has a kind of action-reaction phenomena also. But the difference between India and Pakistan that I see, and also in Bangladesh, I find that as far as the policy of the government is concerned, and the overall steps by the government are concerned, you will find, particularly during last 10 years plus, now Modi is enjoying third term. So in these years, there has been a consistent aggression against minorities, not only at the popular level, but also at the government level. So this has multiplied the problem in that country. But as far as off and on incidents are concerned, I would say, to be fair, that Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, in Pakistan also you can find a couple of occasions. The difference is that as far as the system is concerned, that is not patronizing those occasional incidents. Most recently, we find that after the change in Bangladesh, there has been a lot of discussion that perhaps the students and the mob has attacked. Discussion in the Indian media, discussion in the international media, but I would say it is exaggerated. I noticed one very well known person's example, Little Das, who is the cricketer of the Bangladesh team, and it was reported, it was so much discussed in the social media that being Hindu, he was attacked. But he is currently playing with the Bangladesh team in Rawalpindi here. So that means that things are being manipulated and things are being exaggerated in the media under a constant kind of campaign. In Bangladesh, in fact, recently we find that when the change took place, when Hasina Wajid flew to India, there was still people still were on the street, and there were many occasions where the students from the religious groups, they guarded the temples and other Hindu properties, and they give all kind of support to those people. So a couple of occasional incidents can always take place because there are multiple factors. And in case of Bangladesh, you find that India was intervening in the affairs of Bangladesh, in their decision making at the highest level. And because of that, the Hindu community, if they are associated with India, just like any Muslim associated with Awami League, they may become target. But the current example of those who were protesting, if they are guarding, that is, I think, a very good example that they have set.
Okay, since you mentioned Bangladesh, Mr. Rahman, I'd like to ask you, how do you look at the current state of politics in Bangladesh? What is your perspective regarding the emergence of Bangladesh as an ethnocentric dominated political system? And now their voices being raised, which express appreciation, hope, and admiration towards Pakistan, and distrust and anger towards the disproportionate Indian and Hindu influence over their policies. What is the cause of all this transformation?
You see, for some people, the change in Bangladesh may look a sudden change or a kind of unexpected change. But those who were watching Bangladesh and those who know the dynamics of this South Asia region, I think they can realize that this is not sudden. It was a process that was going on since long, and the undercurrents were there. What happened as a sudden trigger is that the Awami League chief, Hasina Wajid, the prime minister, she came up with a statement that equated the protesters with the Razakars. And that triggered the environment in which everyone felt that whatever was undercurrent, it is time to perhaps bring it on record that yes, there is a link between all these protests and the decision about the quota by the Awami League government and the way it was being implemented. So that was a trigger under which they started calling, yes, you are Razakar, I am Razakar, and that brought the whole story of creation of Bangladesh, the philosophy that was being put under cover about the existence of Bangladesh, the independence of Bangladesh in 1947, because of the two-nation theory and all the struggle behind that, in which Bangladeshi people had taken a lot of interest and involvement. So all those discussions, all those philosophies, they were highlighted because of this trigger that Hasina Wajid made. And because of that, one can understand that whatever was under the undercurrent, this has now highlighted. But that doesn't mean that Bangladeshi people did not have any complaints about Pakistan. But I think the difference is that they had some complaints. It was not a hate by and large. But as far as India is concerned, their role in the last few decades that have led them to a kind of hate in a big number in a big portion of the population. I would not say that the Awami
But what is the cause of this growing hatred towards India and Bangladesh, sir?
You see, Hasina Wajid was there with the support, all kind of support from India. And at the same time, she was trying to serve as much interest of Indians against the quid pro quo that India was supporting her rule and supporting her, giving her all kind of support. So with that, whatever Hasina Wajid was doing, and it included suppression of the people who were against her, it was injustice, it was patronage of a particular group which was associated with Mukti Bahani during the so-called independence movement. So this discrimination against many communities, I think all this led to a hatred against Hasina Wajid, and by default, it developed into hatred against India. She was arrogant.
So what does this mean for identity politics in Bangladesh? Do you think this indicates declining trust in ethnopolitics, or does this mean a revival of ideology-based or Islamic sentiment within Bangladeshi political system?
I would say that as far as the Islamic sentiment is concerned, it was very much there even in 1970s when it came into being. Although the situation at that particular time somehow developed in such a way that debate went off the scene. But the sentiment was there, and that was the reason why OIC became an occasion when Pakistan recognized Bangladesh, and in those days, and in new kind of developments started, which culminated into Hasina Wajid coming here on the scene with full support of India, and then started following that. So 97% or 91% Muslim population is there. They have a long tradition of Muslim background, and with that, you can't imagine that the ideological debate would not remain there. So it goes ups and downs as far as the situation is concerned, but in reality, it is part of the Bangladeshi culture. So it would remain there. And today, when this change has taken place, one should also recognize that there are particular groups who may have developed a lot of stakes with Hasina Wajid, with India. So they are there, but they have not been able to sustain, because at the end of the day, they were not sharing the religious feelings of the larger portion of the Bangladesh population. The currents which were not so obvious apparently during last few years, these are now over the surface, and this trajectory will continue in the circumstances that we are facing in the world also, because there is an external dimension also. While India is in the region, playing the game of the Western countries headed by America in all such issues, and the Islamophobic environment that we find in the European countries, with that India is sharing a lot. So that's why when it is against the India, the public opinion which is against the India, it is multiplied by the facts that are taking place in other parts of the world, and the way the Western world is behaving on issues like Gaza. So together, all these things, not only in Bangladesh, it is other parts of the world at the popular and street level, that Islamic ideology is getting stronger and stronger.
So, but when we look at the personality and the history of Mr. Yunus, who's a Nobel laureate, he's considered as a liberal person, and he's appreciated in the West, and has a lot of friends in the world. But why, despite the emergence of a liberal economist as the leader within Bangladesh, there are growing concerns expressed by Indians and Indian media that the Hindus are being persecuted and their rights are under threat. What is the reason for this?
First of all, I agree with you that Dr. Yunus, he has a lot of background of liberal economics, and his contribution is based on that. But I think it is going to be a great test for Dr. Yunus, that as an economist or as an activist, he played a role as far as the microeconomics, micro credit is concerned, and successfully he has provided some contribution to the Bangladesh economy. But that was an individual's role under an NGO, and of course it developed into a good establishment. But now, being the leader of the country, he will have this test, that to what extent he is able to articulate, to understand the popular feelings, and to articulate those feelings in his decision making, and the way he planned the transition of this temporary phase to bring on the scene the right kind of representative of the Bangladesh masses. So I hope with his background, he should be understanding this phenomena, and he should do justice to his task. I think if he does not follow the indigenous emotions and feelings and requirements of the masses that they would like to see, I think he would be failing too. So this is a great test for him. As far as India is concerned, India's representative or India's player in Bangladesh was Hasina Wajid. So it may take some time for Indians to recoup as per their design, or to regain the ground they have lost currently. It may take some time, but they will try to make every effort. So this is not a conclusive situation, I would say. Transition has started, and one should recognize that the Indians were able to have their intervention from the highest level to the lowest level in the administration in every department. So with that in background, it will be a journey which may take some time, in which those who were enjoying different positions of decision making, they would be addressed, and they might lose in most cases their positions, and a new trajectory starts. But the Indians will make every effort, and that effort is on the ground as well as on the narrative. Now, a few incidents. I think I have seen the reports. The Indians, even the Indian reports, which count some 200 incidents of violence against the Hindus. I'm not sure what kind of credibility these figures have, but in the charged environment, when one can easily or safely assume that many of those who were involved with Hasina Wajid or who were supporting her, they may have become target not because of being Hindu, but because of being part of the Awami League. And this is not related to Hindu or Muslim. This is basically that political affiliation that they were enjoying and being part of the oppressor that the Bangladeshi people were feeling.
Mr. Rahman, my last question is that what are the lessons from the current state of Bangladeshi politics for political parties in South Asia, including Pakistan, which idealize an ethnocentric politics and promote an agenda based on ethnic identity? Because to an objective observer, the tragic departure of Hasina Wajid from Bangladeshi politics reflects a weakening of ethnocentric politics there, and movement towards a more pragmatic, fair, just, equitable political system demanded by the Bangladeshi youth. So what are the lessons in it for Pakistani youth and parties which still idealize ethnocentric politics?
In case of Bangladesh, I would say they have some factors which are not so extensively present in Pakistan. Still, that ethno-national identity question has turned into this situation in which they opted for a different proposition. So that is that they are ethnically almost same, religiously 91% are Muslims. Culturally, they have not much difference within themselves. It is a kind of one unit. When we come to Pakistan, I think the lesson is that you need to have something which unite you. And when we have different ethnicities, I think the major factor that united us in 1947 was our religion. And while identities are very important, and you cannot escape from this identity of an individual or a group or a community, that is part of life, but the overriding ideology should be kept in mind at every level. So that is one important thing. Otherwise, if you go for this ethnic-based politics or ethnic-based decision-making, you can't really keep yourself combined. At the same time, merit is extremely important. Whether you are coming from one party or the other, the decision-making should be on merit. The power or the control cannot continue your position. You cannot continue with your position by employing power. Rather than it should be inclusive, taking all on board, and whatever the democratic norms are there, these should be really in implementation rather than only on paper. So I think all these things you just rightly said, a fair, justice-based system, these are the lessons one should draw. And I can understand that whatever the phase of development in these countries is, it may take a long journey, but we should always be careful that the journey is in the right direction and we are moving forward. It could be slow, but we should be moving forward. And justice-based, merit-based system, that is the target that every one of us should effort for that.
Mr. Khalid Rahman, Chairman, Institute of Policy Studies, very gratitude and thankful for joining us today in this very insightful and comprehensive analysis of the human rights situation in South Asia, the role of identity in politics. And it brings us to the conclusion that the issue of human rights needs to be understood objectively in an unbiased manner because certain individual incidents are blown out of proportion, but some of the lingering, deeper challenges are sometimes neglected. Secondly, there is a growing trend witnessed in case of Bangladesh that ethnic politics is a reality, but not the only reality and not the complete reality of Bangladeshi politics. And the third most important lesson is that whatever the political system a country follows and develops, it is very important that it meets the aspirations of the people. It is based on social justice and equity and respects all citizens, irrespective of their religion, their caste, in an honorable and fair manner. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Perspectives.
Thank you.